This account was created to provide information on how current immigration laws apply to certain factual scenarios. There are many, I suspect, who are worried about their immigration situation, but they're not sure if they should speak to an immigration attorney. Keep in mind, and I cannot stress this enough, that immigration law is unbelievably fact-specific. So even if you think that your situation is nearly identical to one of the ones that I go over here, you still need to speak to an immigration attorney personally. Even the smallest factual changes can make a big difference in the outcome. That said, this is not legal advice. I'm hoping this will merely help educate people as to how the immigration laws work, because I know there are a lot of anxiety exists in certain immigrant communities. Also, immigration laws and procedures will likely change quite a bit in the months to come. So what might be accurate and current at the time of this recording very well could change in the weeks to come, maybe even tomorrow. All right, so let's say that you have DACA and that you are employed and your employer has reached out saying, we're here to help. We're ready to help if there's a way to get you from DACA to a more permanent or stable immigration status. So the first thing you want to consider is, when did you first get DACA? If you first got DACA before you turned 18, then you're going to have a certain pathway that's available to you. If you received DACA for the first time after you turned 18, then you've got other things you're going to have to deal with. And the reason for that is that unlawful presence does not begin until you turn 18. So if you came to the country illegally when you were 8 years old, then you have not been accruing unlawful presence in a legal way, from a legal standpoint, until you turn 18. But if you have DACA before you turn 18, then you're not accruing unlawful presence while you're in DACA status. Okay, so that's the best way to think about it. So let's talk about what it looks like if you've had DACA since before you were 18. In that case, there are a number of things you can do. You can pursue a non-immigrant employment-based visa. That could be a TN visa if you're from Mexico or Canada. It could be an L1 visa, potentially if your employer, let's say, has offices in other countries. They could transfer you out of the country. You stay there and work there for at least a year, and then you can possibly transfer back in on an L1. That's an option. It might not sound like a great option. Maybe your company does not have an office in any other country, so that wouldn't work. But it is something to consider under certain circumstances. An H-1B might also be an option. So let's say you have an engineering degree, you are employed as an engineer for a company, an H-1B might be something that you can look into. Keep in mind with an H-1B that you are going to be subject to the $100,000 H-1B fee that was implemented in the last 6 months. So whether your employer is willing to pay for that is another issue, but technically an H-1B might be a possibility. Now, when you go through that process, you cannot change status to one of those from DACA while you're in the United States. So you will have to process your non-immigrant visa by leaving the US, going to your home country, and getting the visa at a consulate in your home country. That visit should only take a few weeks, possibly a month, but you will need to leave in order to do that. Now let's look at the permanent green card options. You would be eligible to pursue a green card. So if your employer says, hey, you're doing a great job for us, we want to go through the green card process for you, that could be a possibility as well. That process takes a while. Okay, so it's going to take probably about 5 years, maybe a little less, maybe more. It depends what country you're from. But during that 5 years, you are in the United States all the way up until the very last step when you go to the consulate to get your green card. So if you have DACA, you would want to keep it alive during that 5-year period. And then at the very end, you go to your home country, you process your green card, and you come back in. Now let's talk about if you first received DACA after you turned 18. Now that's a different scenario. First of all, you're most likely not going to be eligible for a green card because unless you have a qualifying relative, you wouldn't be eligible to get a waiver for the unlawful presence that you have accrued in the United States. You will be eligible for non-immigrant visas though. Okay, so again, H-1B, L-1, TN, any of those could be potential matches. But when you go to your consular appointment at the end of that process, you're going to need what's called a D3 waiver. So on another video, I talk about D3 waivers. I go into some detail about that. And you can click on that and it'll tell you what you need to show for a D3 waiver and how those process and how long those take. So long story short, if you have DACA and you have an employer that wants to help you out, it is definitely worth a conversation to see if any of these options will fit for you, so that you can get off of DACA, get into a more permanent or stable immigration status, and then maybe ultimately become a citizen. Hopefully that helps. Reach out to me with any questions. I'm happy to answer them. Happy to schedule a time to speak to you and your employer so I can describe exactly how that process looks and what that 5-year period is kind of broken down to, because there are several steps in there. It's not just file documents, wait 5 years, get approved. There's a lot of things we have to do during that time. So take care.